Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to another Webinar Wednesday hosted by California State University Bakersfield Small Business Development Center. So very happy Flag Day to everybody, June 14th. It's really nice to be here today on Flag Day. I get to wear my Flag Day attire and everything. I'm Kelly Bearden. I'm the director of the CSU SBDC, and I will serve as your host today. We got a couple special guests, got a great presentation coming up on pricing. Really looking forward to that, and some information on an event. But before that, let's get going. So what's up today? It's Flag Day, June 14th, 2023. So we're going to be talking a little bit about Flag Day today. Wonderful day in U.S. history, find out a little bit more on it. But also, really, it's pricing your goods and services in inflationary times is today's topic. So we're going to get into that. I think it's a wonderful topic to talk about in non-inflationary times. So when we're in inflationary times, it's got to be good, right? We'll have our capital quarter where we'll talk a little less than we had planned on the small business debt ceiling. Our economic corner acquaints us with greedflation. Ooh, yes. Greedflation. Got to talk about that today. Our community calendar gets live today. We have Deepak Bahl from USC join us to tell us about a great conference coming up in just a few minutes. Our disaster relief continues as mild spring weather continues to bring wonderful news for those that are downstream from the snowpack in the Sierra Mountains. And as always, we'll take your questions. Please put those in the Q&A box. And today, a poll. So let's start with our poll real quick. We have two simple questions, and our two simple questions today are going to be, the very first one is going to be right here. And we'll launch this particular question, and it's basically about Flag Day. When did it receive its presidential proclamation for June 14th? Was it 1777, 1916, or 1949? I will tell you they're all three significant dates for actually, Flag Day, but there is one of those that stand out. So we have three significant dates for you. If you jump in and participate, 1777, 1916, or 1949. So we do have about 38% of you in. 38% of you patriotic people are the presidential proclamation for Flag Day, June 14th. Give you one last second, and we're going to end this particular poll, and we're going to share the results with you. And so what we'll do is find out how you voted. Look at this. You guys are good. A third, and a third. All three of them are significant dates, with 54% of you participating. A third of you in the middle are correct, 1916, or at least the part we're looking at. 1717 started Flag Day and recognized the U.S. flag. 1916, President Woodrow Wilson initiated it as being Flag Day, and then it was officialized in 1949. So thank you for actually participating in that particular poll. Let's go to one more question, maybe get a little more whimsical on this one. And poll question number 2, we're going to ask you some news of the day. And it's business news, of course, and it's Bud Light. In honor of all you fathers coming up on Father's Day, Bud Light lost its long-time selling title as the U.S. top-selling beer in the U.S. Which replaced it? Was it Modelo? Was it Sierra Nevada? Or was it Budweiser? So for a long period of time, Bud Light was the number one selling beer in the United States of America. That has changed, and with 43% of you in, we're going to go ahead and give you one last shot to jump in, and we're going to end this particular poll. And here you go. Your results. You guys nailed it. 64% of you are correct with Modelo, and also 29% Sierra Nevada, and 7% for Budweiser. So for you fathers out there, Bud Light really kind of has a little crisis going on with a little bit of a boycott and other things that I don't like getting into on Webinar Wednesday. But for those reasons, we do have now a new top-selling beer in the United States of America. Okay, moving along on our SBA property damage application. The deadline has been extended till July 20th, 2023. And if you suffered economic injury, that is extended now to the deadline is January 3rd of 2024. There's the declaration on the right, the one that we've been talking about, and a lot of the programs that are available. There are loans available for your business as far as business and economic injury. And also, if you are a resident, if you're an individual, there's home loans and also other types of mitigation that can actually prevent this from happening in the future. So one of the few instances an SBA, a U.S. Small Business Administration loan, will go for an individual to work on their particular house. There's a disaster resource center open in Mammoth Lakes. It is open at the Mono County Civic Center. If you're in the Eastern Sierra and you want to go talk to somebody, they're set up and ready to go. We're going to slow down and go a little bit lighter on our capital quarter today. We have our debt ceiling for small businesses, and it's the factors that can limit the amount of capital as a small business you can raise. So our version of the debt ceiling, at least for small businesses, how can we be preempted from raising more cash? We talked about the first week about our debt to equity financial ratio and about having too much debt to equity. We'll have generally a lender or a bank turn you down for that particular reason. Last week, we introduced the LICO, the liquid FICO credit score. Boy, that's a fun one to say. The liquid FICO score, credit score. And also, if you're not able to demonstrate positive cash flow, had a nice example. We won't go through it this time in the interest of time, but there's a demonstration that can be available, and we'll get it in the chat for next week that will show you if you do not have cash flow, you cannot borrow to the full extent of what your business can maybe be entitled to. Our regular our focus on the economy today is our economic corner, and generally it's passed a lot about shrinkflation, about how your 64-ounce ice cream, your half gallon went to 48 ounces, and many other products. But now we have what is being called as greedflation. And greedflation is where a lot of the food and consumer companies that are public and have been mentioning this in their reports as far as to analysts and others have been very aggressively raising prices in order to take advantage of inflation and where it has gone. So greedflation, I see it in some of these small businesses also. And maybe greedflation has a tie back to today's topic of pricing. And so, by the way, inflation in May, 4%. Half of what it was a year before, but still double what the Fed target is of 2%. So there's your economic corner for today. Moving on to our calendar quarter, our community calendar. All the good resources and things that are happening. It's my opportunity and pleasure to bring in Deepak Bahl, and he is the Economic Development Manager for the University of Southern California, has a great Capital Access event coming up in just about another week or so. Deepak, thanks for joining us. Take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Kelly. Good afternoon. So I'm Deepak Bahl, Program Director at the USC Center for Economic Development. Just a brief background on the center. The Center for Economic Development serves as a leader in facilitating sustainable economic development opportunities through technical assistance, applied research, and information dissemination. So on June 22nd, as Kelly has shared with you the flyer, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., the center will hold an online Capital Access Workshop. While we have come out of the COVID-19 pandemic, small businesses still face a tough economic environment with high inflation and high interest rates and a risk of recession on the horizon. So this workshop will bring together representatives from government, financial institutions, mission-based lenders, and philanthropic organizations to discuss how small businesses and manufacturers, and especially minority, and women-owned businesses can access capital. So what do we have kind of the plan? This is like a 4-hour workshop. So lending organizations will identify the various grants and loan products, their underwriting criteria, types of businesses served, rates, terms, requirements, and their contact information. We shall explore a menu of funding options catering to your small business needs in this workshop. And lenders will discuss flexible, affordable consumer and micro enterprise loans to borrowers with little access to traditional financing, as well as working capital, equipment financing, and other innovative products. We have in this workshop experts from the Federal Reserve Bank, the Small Business Administration, Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, SBDCs from Kern, Los Angeles, and Imperial counties, mission-based lenders, those are the CDFIs, SBA lender who works with businesses with only ITIN and not Social Security, lender using revenue-based financing, lender working with recent immigrants and focusing on the Black, Indian, and people of color communities, and mainstream banks. So it's a spectrum of funders sharing with you a variety of funding opportunities. In addition to the online workshop, we will share with small businesses Capital Access Program link on CAD's website, and that is cad.usc.edu. So my humble request to you, small businesses, please register and join us on June 22nd. I look forward to seeing you. Thank you, Kelly, so much for having me here today.
Well, it's really our pleasure. And it's really a great event when you can bring that many and that inclusive of a number of lenders together. And it's so relationship based. It really gives us all an opportunity to further that relationship or start new relationships.
And if I may just do a last plug-in, Kelly will be there as well. So, please join us.
Oh, now none of them are going to show up. Okay, we tried.
All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, bye.
Okay, so on our SBDC toolbox, a lot of tools in there, including our YouTube page, where we house most of our webinars. Not all the 280 are in there. And, other things too, other interesting events are on the YouTube page. Oftentimes we get our resident economist, Dr. Mark Evans, who is a semi-regular on Webinar Wednesday and so forth. We have our HR resource for small business hotline. We'll be talking about this in the more weeks to come. It's a great complimentary service provided by the California Employers Association. There's your phone number for the hotline. We have actually vetted that. Everybody really seems very, very, very pleased. Our YouTube channel is where you can go jump. And now it's time to bring in our special guest today. And our special guest is Shawn Palmer. He's a proud Navy veteran. Kern County is really a Navy county too, Shawn. That'll go over well with our Eastern Kern folks out by the China Lake Naval Weapons Station. He's also an entrepreneur and actually certified business advisor with Washington, the state of Washington Small Business Development Center, where he is based in Redmond, Washington. He's been featured on national podcasts, speaks at conferences, presents at workshops. I've heard this presentation on pricing, was absolutely thrilled to have him come on the webinar. And as he has mentioned, he's got a daughter, not teenage probably anymore, maybe got a sophomore, but maybe a college sophomore. So he's been sharing valuable advice for 20 years. But as a business advisor for Shawn, it's great to have you on. Take it away, please.
Welcome, everybody. Again, as Kelly had already said, happy Flag Day to everybody. Today's Entrepreneur's Roadmap webinar is how to optimize your pricing strategy to maximize profit, not just revenue, but profit. And before we really jump into things, if I'm feeling good and I'm familiar enough with my audience, I might lead off with something a little bit humorous. And an old standby used to be, if you showed up today expecting a handsome and charismatic presenter, Brad Pitt couldn't be here, so you got me instead. But then I imagined Brad Pitt at an award show. Brad Pitt comes to the podium. Brad Pitt says, "Hey, Leo, remember that one movie we did? Hey, everyone, thank you so much for this award. If you were anticipating a polished and inspirational acceptance speech, Shawn Palmer couldn't be here. You got me instead. Hey, buddy, Angelina sends her best." So as we recover from that hilarity, let's go ahead and jump into things. I refer to this as a roadmap series in part because your roadmap is your businesses and you as an entrepreneur, your set of waypoints to get from point A to point Z, however it is that you define it. It might be your business plan, your marketing plan, but we know that a failure to plan is also a plan to fail. And since it's Flag Day, I'm going to bring in a military reference. Then General Dwight D. Eisenhower, while planning the D-Day invasion, which I promise you did not go perfectly according to plan, had said that the plan itself is useless, but the planning process is really what is indispensable. I work for an organization called One Redmond here on the east side of Lake Washington, a suburb of Seattle, more or less. And we serve as both the community foundation, the community foundation, the chamber, as well as the economic development agency for the city. Now we're going to do two very quick reviews. And the first one here is profit normalization. If you were to work somewhere, let's say you're the general manager of a gym, you expect to earn a salary. But taking the risk of being in business, you are allowed to earn a normal profit. Normal profit includes all of the things you would have received working somewhere else, which is all of your benefits, being able to set aside money for retirement. And if you are the only game in town, if you are killing it in such a way that everybody comes to you, you're actually allowed to earn this, this economic concept of what we call extra profit. Now, when you start earning an extra profit, some aspiring entrepreneur on the sideline is looking over your shoulder saying to themselves, I can do that too. Your own success winds up inviting competition, at which point profits normalize. Now, along that bottom axis, we see innovation and time. So what this bar graph tells us is that over time, profits normalize. Also, the entrepreneur must continue to innovate, even though profits over time actually come back down. But it's that innovation, keeping up with what our customers need and want, that keeps us in business and keeps us competitive. Our next review is supply and demand. Now, what this says is that there is going to be a stated equilibrium price and quantity where our supply and demand curves intersect. And what this is showing us is that for changes in quantity, for changes in price, quantities are going to have a corresponding change, which means we can raise price or lower price and not expect to sell the exact same number of goods. So for a rise in price, we see a corresponding decrease in demand. Now, not everybody's supply and demand curve is this gently sloping more or less 45 degrees. Knowing if you have a luxury good or more of a consumer good will tell you the basic shape of what your demand curve is, as luxury goods tend to be more vertical and consumer goods tend to be more flat, more horizontal. What that means is Ferrari can raise their price and see very little change in demand. Likewise, Walmart can lower their price, and because of the competitive industry, they can see a very big increase in demand. Now, they've done this. That's why their prices are low and they have the market share that they do. What this creates, this new box, is we call this our revenue box. Price times quantity is our total revenue. for that particular good or service. What this hasn't accounted for yet is the cost. That is, we can see revenue decrease or increase, but profitability does not necessarily follow suit based on what it costs us. So let's run through this example quickly. You can tell I'm not a coffee drinker because in this example, coffee costs only $2. But in that middle column, we sell 2,000 coffees out of our drive-through espresso stand at $2. And so we make $4,000 a week. You can see the variable and the fixed costs that are associated with that price point. And now what we're going to do is we're going to have a modest price increase of 10% to $2.20. We lose 100 customers because 100 of them were willing to pay $2 for coffee, but they're not willing to pay more. They're going to go somewhere else. You can see the corresponding change in revenue, that is price times quantity. We sold fewer cups, so our variable cost actually comes down because we only have to produce 1,900 cups of coffee. Our fixed costs are exactly that, they stay fixed. But with this price increase, even though demand decreased, which we expected, we still see an increase in profit. And so there are ways that we can work with subtle price changes or temporary price changes so that we don't lock them in, but we're able to do some market research and see how our customers are going to respond. So price does two things for us. It is our profit equation. Profit equals price minus cost. We can also use price to incentivize, that is, to move our customers toward or away from a more or less desired outcome. I'll take you through a couple of examples. Let's look at different pricing models first. That is, ways that we can price. It's not just about the number attached to the dollar sign, the price that people pay, but the way that we decide to structure it. And oftentimes businesses feel that we can only do it one way. That is the a la carte pricing strategy, off the menu. That is, your second item is going to be the exact same cost as your first, and your 11th is going to be exact same as your first. What we want to look at is different ways that we could potentially charge our clients to put them on the exact same side of the table as us. Our profitability, and how fortuitous that we bring up something like greedflation on a day that we're talking about potentially increasing prices in an era where we've seen supply chains disrupted, we've seen consumer sentiment change, we have seen manufacturing fall off, we've seen competition move up and down as different businesses pivot and do things differently. So a lot of businesses think that if I raise my price, it's greedy, I'm overcharging my client. But I promise you, if your customers have become accustomed to receiving the goods and services that you're selling, they want you to remain in business. And it comes down to consumer sovereignty. As citizens, we vote with our actual vote, but as consumers, we vote with our dollar. And so long as the entrepreneur is providing something of value, that is, you are doing something that your customers want, we can almost charge whatever we want to if we have created something valuable that they demand. And we have to be able to price it in such a way that we realize a normal profit. And I say this because far too often entrepreneurs, their gauge for success is, well, I made it another month. We should actually be enjoying what we do, not living paycheck to paycheck, and have a long-term outlook of sustainable profitability. So let's look at some other pricing models that we can incorporate, knowing that we can actually use more than one simultaneously. So component pricing. This is what you get. My daughter is a sophomore at college up here in Washington, studying to be a teacher. And we pay for her tuition. And during any academic quarter, she can use between 12 and 18 credits, and she can take English and geography or her upper level education classes. And so long as she's between 12 and 18, she can package classes together any way she wants to for the exact same price. one of her favorite restaurants, Panda Express, much the same way. You don't buy off the menu at Panda Express. You choose the carbohydrate you want, the 2 different rices and noodles, and then you purchase a number of entrees, 1, 2, or 3. There's a small upsell for the shrimp or the steak, and then you get to choose from the orange chicken and General Tso's pork and whatever else. It's an efficiency for the restaurant while still creating value and flexibility and choices for the consumer. I'm going to talk about the next 2 simultaneously as they're often used interchangeably, albeit incorrectly. A subscription is actually rooted in periodicity. So we think we subscribe to a streaming service like Netflix, but Netflix is actually a membership in regards to pricing strategies, because membership is about a single price with unlimited access. So the library, a free membership, but still a membership. And what makes Netflix a membership is that you can binge watch from the first season to the last, Grey's Anatomy, start to finish, it's the exact same price. You can go on vacation, never turn your TV on, and it's the exact same price. The periodicity of what makes a subscription is the fact that your landscaper shows up once a week. You receive something in the mail once a month. It's that periodicity, that price, and a deliverable, however often the period is, weekly, monthly, quarterly, whatever. And then finally, block pricing allows a caterer to bid on something and take their costs, what they're saving on marketing and what they're able to create as far as economies of scale by catering a wedding and having 200 guests versus trying to sell, sandwiches or plates of whatever it is that they do, 1 or 2 or 3 at a time. So a restaurant that I saw use a couple of these different strategies as food business were struggling coming out of the pandemic. What they did is they actually shrunk their menu down. They shrunk their menu down to where they sold only a couple of different items every night. It made it a little bit more exclusive. It really dropped the waste that they were experiencing in their kitchen and just allowed them to focus on a couple different things. And they always knew what they were going to be selling. And it actually increased their profits. Another restaurant does something that they call Chef's Club or Owner's Club, and it's a subscription. It's a subscription, even though they call them members of the Chef Club, but it's a subscription because you pay and the periodicity is quarterly. You get to come to an after hours event once a quarter. And it's a way to take advantage of time that they were going to be there anyway. It's a breakfast and lunch restaurant. So time that they can invite members in after hours, and it's a way to deliver extra value that people are willing to pay for. So it's not just the one thing that we offer, but the innovation of entrepreneurship is looking at what is the next thing that our clients and customers want. Is it a way that it's delivered? Is it a new product? Is it a no hassle return policy? What is it that they're looking for? And the entrepreneur must continue to think about that. So now let's look at pricing incentives. So not just the profitability, but now steering our customers toward or away from a more or less desired outcome. So number psychology first and foremost, and we see this with gas prices. Gas does not cost $4.99 a gallon. It's $4.99 per gallon. In 2018, the last year that this data was available, $17 million added annually in retail gas sales just in the US, just in 2018, just from the 0.9 cents. It is extremely impactful, but we almost ignore it. We see it in movie theater popcorn. Small, medium, large, $7, $8, $9. We don't begin to calculate how incredibly ridiculous all 3 of those prices are. We begin to calculate how small the incremental changes from 7 to 8 and then 8 to 9. Now, the movie theater is going to make money on popcorn. Their efficiency lies in selling popcorn with fewer trips for the cashier from the cash register back to where the popcorn is. They want to sell a largest worth of popcorn in one trip, not a largest worth of popcorn in 4 trips, because once that customer or that line of customers has moved on, that cashier is now going and doing different things in the movie theater, from ushering and cleaning and whatever else. Discounts, coupons, and promotional codes. So here we introduce break even. Whatever coupon or discount we are going to offer, we can't lose money on that transaction. I get a 10% military discount at Home Depot and Lowe's. I love it. I do. All the other customers who don't get the military discount are subsidizing those who do a little bit, but they're subsidizing those that do. Lowe's and Home Depot don't lose money on me, I promise. If you've ever been to a drive-through espresso stand and you get the punch card, buy 10, get your 11th one free. You're not getting the 11th one for free. You're prepaying it on the first 10% at a time. It's actually a money maker for the espresso stand, every card that goes unredeemed. And if you've got a coffee stand client, I'm talking to you, SBDC advisors, have them print their punch cards in different colors, 2 different colors, and they give colors to, or one color to single occupant vehicles, and then another color to multiple occupant vehicles. Male drivers or female drivers. There is a dog in the car, there isn't a dog in the car. And then as these cards come back, you just start seeing relatively how big one stack is versus the other. This is data that your point of sale software, which will record time and amount and number of transactions in any given hour. There's market research available here that largely goes untouched. So just encourage them to print 2 cards in different colors and decide what they're going to try and keep track of for that quarter or for that half year, because it does take a while to get some cards out and then get some cards back. Threshold and quantity, we see this. If you've ever been an online shopper and you have purchased $17 worth of stuff to qualify for $6 in free shipping, this works. We also see this in grocery store layout. We see it in restaurant menus. Not so much the threshold and quantity, but just overall layout and presentation. In fact, that's the very next one. So let's jump to it. Restaurant menus. If you've been to a Mexican family dining restaurant, at any point, you see that long list of dinner entrees, 1 through 33. And the expensive ones do tend to be at the bottom, not because they're the most expensive, but it's the lowest margin for the restaurant. Those first 6, those first 8, they're going to make 80% of their profit on those 8 plates for the entire week, regardless of their operating hours. They want you to see something you're familiar with that middle of the road price point that you know tastes good. I'll have the chicken soft tacos. I'll have the beef fajitas, the shrimp, the steak. It's at the bottom. They want you to choose something in that first 6 or in that first 8. Grocery stores. When milk goes on sale, do they put it up front so it's super convenient? Walk in, grab it, walk back out? No, the important stuff that we really need, it's on the edge, it's on the periphery. You have to walk down the aisle of sugary cereals and Pop-Tarts to the stuff we really need: produce, meat, dairy, the bakery. And then back down another aisle of boxed macaroni and cheese and rice-a-roni to get to the checkout stand. Let's talk about the checkout stand. Express checkout has nothing to do with convenience. Grocery stores did the research and they know they've got 2 types of shoppers in their store. They come in once a week, maybe even once every other week, they fill the cart, they go home. Or I don't want to pay the exorbitant price at the 7-Eleven or at the convenience store or the gas station on the way home. I'm going to go the extra half mile to the grocery store, and I only need 2 things for dinner. Now, once you've got those 2 things, the trigger in our head is, oh, I can still make it through the express checkout. I have 10 more items to go. I may as well grab those things while I'm here. And that's what they're trying to do. They're using that threshold and quantity. Let's pull that back in to get you to purchase more while you're there. And it's going to take you darn near the exact same amount of time. Artificially inflating our price points. I had a client do this masterfully. It worked out so incredibly well. He was doing custom welding work. He's up here in Washington State, and all he was doing was getting these small repair jobs, and it was driving him crazy. One, he wasn't making enough. Two, he didn't like it. And as an entrepreneur, our bread and butter, what we do most of, should be what we enjoy. That's why we got into this. It should also have some of our best margins. Now, it's on us to find that efficiency, to find those economies of scale, to make the margin work. We can't just charge more, right? We have to provide something valuable. We can almost charge whatever we want. However, it's on the entrepreneur to find that efficiencies. But then once we have found those, we get to capitalize on that. That's profit for us. Now, what he did was he artificially inflated the price he was charging for the repair work. He wound up getting a custom repair or a custom build for a wrought iron gate, very decorative, very ornamental, at a local private university. It was what he enjoyed doing. The margin was fantastic. While he was there installing it, he saw one of his friends who happens to be a competitor doing a small repair job on site. And he asked him, he goes, "Hey, what brings you here?" He goes, well, I was told that I got this job because I charged a lower price than you do for your repair work. So he artificially inflated what he was charging for the repair work. Someone else got it, which opened him up to get the job he really wanted. If you've ever been to a seminar that talks about, I don't know, flipping houses or social media marketing, they share something valuable. They teach you some stuff, you learn some stuff, and toward the end, there's the sell. Hey, if you really want to get into this, if you really want to become good at social media marketing, I offer an intensive 2-day course, $2,000. Or what most of my clients wind up doing is opting for group advising, and that's only $900. A couple things have happened here. Again, just like movie theater popcorn, our math brain immediately goes to, that's more than a 50% discount. That sounds pretty good. I'm going to sign up for that. If you've ever worked one-on-one with a client for any length of time, you know it can be mentally exhausting. Just that level of focus for that long, it takes a lot out of us. So what that presenter has done is, one, he's increased revenue and absolutely increased profit, because rather than for 2 days, rather than earn $2,000 working with one client, he's going to earn $900 times 12. 9 times 12 is 10,800. I don't think that's right. However the math works out. Nope, that's right. So he has quintupled his revenue. Here's what else he's done, because here's the great thing about group work. You and you work together, you and you work together. I'll be back in 10 minutes. I'm going to take a break. So what he's done, or she, is increase profit and revenue, but also made their job a little bit easier. The overhead goes up a little bit. You now have to mail out 12 packets versus 1. You got to send 12 email reminders, not 1. But that's easy to scale and find efficiencies in. As a public speaker, this is the exact thing I do. I charge a daily rate no matter how long I'm going to be there. So here in Western Washington, I can't do a morning public speaking gig where someone says, "Shawn, we just want you to come in, do our morning keynote." That's it. You're here for 45 minutes. I can't travel anywhere else and do an afternoon gig that happens to fall on the same day. So I say, great, I will happily do the 45 minutes, but I'm charging you for the entire day. Here's what I have created and what other businesses have the opportunity to create when you do the same thing. is we want to provide maximum value. I also know that every public speaking engagement I do, I'm auditioning for my next 12. So I want to be in front of more people. So what the event organizer, what the trainer, what they wind up doing is, okay, well, can you also host our lunchtime roundtable? And can you lead 2 afternoon workshops? Absolutely, I can. I'm on the same side of the table with you. I want to be able to make this successful for you and deliver value. Meanwhile, it has to be profitable and successful for me as well. All right, with that, we are just about at time. We're also at the very last slide. I do encourage you to connect in some way. Shoot me an email, connect on LinkedIn, but I absolutely want to thank Kelly for the invitation today. And while we have a few minutes left, let me open it up to questions, please. Kelly, I'll let you moderate if anyone has dropped anything into the Q&A functionality. I will happily go back to any slide you wish, clarify or answer, but this is our time together. What can I do or clarify to really help bring home the pricing strategy concepts we spoke about today?
Well, people are shy today. No questions so far. So here's your chance, though. Pricing questions, go to the Q&A box.
Sometimes I present things so perfectly that there are no questions to be asked. Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes. But I promise you, if you've got a question that's just ping-ponging around a little bit, someone else has the exact same question. It's okay to just blurt it out. I will happily answer it.
And here they come, rolling on in, just as you prescribed. First question, is there a specific rewards program that you could recommend?
Oh my gosh, that is so, there's not. That's the short answer. I don't have nearly enough information. The service and product being offered, the price points and margins they're being offered at, that's a very nuanced question. I'm sorry I can't offer anything of real value, but I would absolutely need more information. If that was asked by an advisor, connect with me. I'll happily share some things so that you can now share that with your clients. If you're a business owner, I encourage you to reach out to the Central California SBDC, and one of their advisors will happily help.
Yeah, there's a lot that you can really go into with rewards program.
Holy cow, absolutely. It's an awesome question. I'm so glad you asked. It's just so awesome. I don't have time to pull it apart with the time we have. I'm so sorry.
Here's a question. Do you suggest discounting?
Here's one of my 2 most common responses to any small business question. It depends. And here's what it depends on. It depends upon if you can afford it. It depends upon what the new margin is going to be, and if that can be made up by the volume you intend to add. That is, you're making a little bit less, but you're selling a whole lot more. Is that what we're trying to accomplish? Are you trying to temporarily try a new price point by offering for this weekend only? Come in and buy grills over Father's Day weekend at this reduced price. Are you trying to do like an early bird special at a restaurant? So here, it has nothing to do with their love for grandmas and grandpas. It has everything to do with the kitchen being running already, the lunch crowd having left, and the staff having nothing to do before dinner. That's what that is for. The restaurant may as well make something rather than lose for that 3 hours when the staff has nothing to do and they have no customers. So what are we trying to accomplish with this discount? That's going to tell us how we should do it. So yes, I recommend it, but what are we accomplishing? That will dictate how we set about accomplishing it. Another great question. I appreciate it.
Yay. Actually, we got that twice. That was such a important question. Next question. What is the magic number for clothing store discount sales to get people in the door? Is there a magic number for a clothing store to discount to get people in the door?
I would say that magic number is the ratio of leprechauns to unicorns. And if you know that was a reference from The Office, you and I are totally going to be friends. I don't know of that magic number. Some clothing retailers are high end. Some are a little bit more consumer staples. Some do specialty items. I'm working with a customer right now. She is opening a Hawaiian or island themed clothing retailer here in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. And she's going to be the only one. So she's a specialty clothing retailer, and that deserves and requires different considerations. So there's no magic number, but I will tell you from another one of my workshops, there's blind risk and there's calculated risk, and it's all blind risk until you do the math. So I happily share that I'm bilingual, as many of you in Central California are, but my two languages are English and math. And you might chuckle, but if you know math, you know it is absolutely a language all its own. Not accounting, but the business math, the cost benefit analysis that we have to do to see if this is feasible, and then see the likelihood of success or failure to know if we should pull the trigger. And that's what is going to be required here. Some of that forecasting and cost benefit analysis to see what we should do, and then using some of those temporary pricing strategies like discount codes and specials and sales to see how the customers actually react. So there are ways to do it. There are ways to do it wrong, and there are certainly ways to do it right. I encourage you to work with an SBDC advisor in your area, and they will happily help you with that, I promise. Good question. I'm sorry I couldn't offer something more tangible, though.
Here's a question on discounting that's slightly different. So what about the practice of charging more, of raising your price, and then offering a discount based on the increased price? I think we've all seen that.
Yep, we have. And okay, again, it depends. It depends upon how long that price has existed. It depends on if you're offering any more value for that price before you discount it. Because while that can work in a spreadsheet, I promise you that consumer sentiment is going to turn negative. They're going to notice. We notice it now, and yeah, there is some, okay, I know what you're doing. You raised the price and then you lowered it and called it a sale. So a little bit, it's like that artificially inflated price point, but with the artificially inflated price point, there's less of the insinuation that the consumer isn't that bright. So I caution you to full on raise your price just to then call your regular price a discount. I will bet you, and again, it depends. I don't know what industry or what business you do, or what your price points or your margins are currently, or the volume that you do. All important factors in determining ways that we can adjust our price that will actually lead to more profitability, and this is the important part, help build brand and customer loyalty. Those are the things we want. We don't simply want to raise prices through the roof and think, oh, well, I only have to sell a couple if I'm going to triple my price. We actually want people to keep coming back. We want this to be sustainable. Profitability and sustainable conjoined. That's what we're trying to accomplish with our pricing strategy, which is an aspect of the entire entrepreneurial process. Again, these are great questions, but they're so nuanced. It's very hard to pick them apart and give a definitive answer with so many variables that I just don't know yet.
Well, let me keep that theme going then.
Perfect.
The block pricing method that you mentioned, would that include something like family meals that a restaurant might serve and sell?
Okay, I see where you're going with this, where maybe you have like larger portions, or if there's a family of 4, they can order like really big sides and then just like a platter of something. It would be a combination of block with a la carte, because you're going to have a stated price. Block pricing is a little bit more about the bid process and the entrepreneur being able to submit a price based on the deliverables required, knowing that catering a 200-person wedding is going to be different than catering a 75-person corporate event. So the example that I used when I charge a daily rate, that's part block pricing, but then there are also times that I will negotiate that price. So it's a combination. And here's the thing, we can combine and overlap. There's a Venn diagram of pricing where sometimes those strategies actually overlap, where we use them in conjunction with one another. That absolutely can happen. If you're a restaurateur and you're asking if you could or should try something like that, absolutely try it and then see if it works after you've done that initial cost benefit analysis based on assumptions of current consumer sentiment for your restaurant. I made some assumptions there about who asked, but I hope that wound up being helpful.
Here's, I think there's a question in here kind of tied into this comment, and it is pricing is definitely tough. I know my products have top-notch components. I put tedious amounts of hours in research, but I struggle as to properly price.
Okay, I'm going to assume the embedded question of what should I do? And again, it depends. So there's an awesome TEDx by a gentleman named Guy Kawasaki, talks about the art of innovation, the art of innovation. And in it, he says, a manufacturer or a scientist or an engineer, they develop something great, but a marketer tells the world that you've got something great, and an entrepreneur a little bit, we got to be both, right? So part of it might be your branding. Part of it might be, and I'm making some assumptions here, I have no idea, sir, ma'am, what it is that your product actually is. Are you overbuilding it? Are you putting in too high a quality a component for who your customer segment is? The inverse of that is, do you have the right customer segment for how great a product you've developed? There are some variables here in part of the entrepreneurial process, and one of the hardest parts is getting them to align. And pricing, even if you've been in business for a while, is tough. Changing that price or getting it right straight out of the gate, if you're new, the business or the product, even more so. Again, take this to an SBDC advisor. They will happily do a deep dive with you. If your SBDC advisor doesn't have if this is a little bit outside their wheelhouse or outside their lane, have them get a hold of me and I will happily help. I love the numbers part of this. I just can't work directly with somebody who's out of my state, but I can absolutely share some wisdom and guidance with your California SBDC advisor. Kelly, I think we're at time. I don't want to intrude on anyone's schedule today, but I'm going to turn it over to you to offer some guidance and close this out, sir.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating topic. I had recently read, how America's largest restaurant franchise decides how and when to raise prices. And it's a very complex issue. I mean, it's not only raise prices, it's change prices. Some prices they are considering even lowering depending on how economic conditions go, but it takes a lot of research and really takes a little bit of time and effort in order to go through there and data. So great topic. Great job, Shawn. Appreciate you coming on. But we are going to wrap this thing up. So appreciate you joining us today. We'll be back next week for webinar number 281. And our special guest will be Ruth Hedges talking about crowdfunding. The queen of crowdfunding will be in here. And I'd like to thank Shawn and also thank Deepak Bahl for coming on today. Everybody have a great week, and we will see you next week. So long, everyone.